Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 38 of the Cats and Bolts podcast. And I do not know what we would do without Ben bringing it in hot like that. Benny boy, thank you so much for that introduction. Well, as you guys can see, this is my co-host, Mr. Tampa Bay Lightning here for the day. He's going to be joining me today, and he's actually a lot quieter than my other co-host, who is back in Canada. We will bring him on very shortly, but here we go. 2 games down in Florida, heading back to Edmonton for 2 more. The Cats and Bolts podcast, episode number 38, is brought to you by DraftKings, the Beach House in Pompano, and of course, its sister restaurant, Baresco. You guys have to head down there, check that out, as Rod and I like to do. So I think it's probably time to bring in Rod from sunny Canada. Rod, thank you so much for taking the time to actually come and sit and hang out. Oh, I hear that bell. I hear the bell. I'm already irritated by that. Perfect. So, Rod, let's get talking about this right away. Let's start cutting up everything that we need to talk about the first 2 games, maybe previewing the next 2 games in Edmonton. But first and foremost, tell us a little bit about what you have been doing up there recently.
Well, hey, Sarina, I'm broadcasting baseball, as you know, in the Western Canadian Baseball League, minor league baseball. So we're having a lot of fun doing that. And their season started before the end of the hockey season. So I'm up here watching the Stanley Cup final, enjoying it in Canada where, hey, I talked to Billy Lindsay today. He's like, I haven't been in Canada in a long time, and doing my daily talk show. But we're going to talk about this series, obviously, Sarina. And yes, hey, you're welcome for me guesting on my show. You're welcome. We're 2 games into the Ben liked that. I heard him in the back. Panthers were up 2-0. I see you're not wearing Oilers stuff. I'm wearing Panthers stuff because I thought Panthers. Why are you not wearing Oilers stuff?
Truth, because all of my stuff is packed to move. I was on a call until right before I had to leave the house. And as everybody in South Florida knows, that's extremely windy there, Rodzo. Everybody in South Florida knows that we are under like a monsoon right now. So I was pretty much in the closet looking for a rain jacket. I just threw some clothes on. I was like, I just got to get out the door. I still have to make another phone call on the way here. I have my Oilers jackets and jerseys in the car, but by the time I got in here, I'm like, it's just raining so hard. I'm not going back there. That's why.
Okay, cool. I thought it was a superstition thing or something. But again, I would hope people by now know that I do a daily talk show on television in Canada, the Rod Peterson Show, because I know that because some of our viewers here are watching that. And it's reflected in the 10 questions I've got from our viewers because I put it out, you probably saw, for viewer questions today. So before we get to those, which I have written down, the Panthers won game 1 3-0. The Panthers won game 2 4-1. And now they go up to Edmonton for games 3 and 4. And does it even come back to Sunrise at all? Let me put this to you, because from what I can gather, people only want to hear your opinion, which is fine.
People only want to hear my opinion so they can carve me up. That's exactly what I said. I told you so. There's no chance that Edmonton's going to lose both games in Edmonton. You know, Edmonton was not the better team in game 2, but they were definitely the better team in game 1. So even though they're down 2-0, at least the positives are that Edmonton has proven that they can play well. Edmonton's a great hockey team. They're a really good team. And I just keep thinking back to Dale Talent saying, don't worry about it. They've got the talent. So no, they're not going to lose both games in Edmonton.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and by the way, you mentioned Dale Talent. I've been trying to line up Sarina's guests for while I'm in Canada. Dale Talent. Sorry, I'm in Chicago. Jovo. Sorry, I got a house full of family. Jeff Chikrin, sorry, I'm in Ottawa. So either nobody's around or they're busy. So here you got me. And thank you to John Sinclair and Billy Lindsay for coming in last week. But my take is this. The number one, I do enjoy the perspective of the Canadian media. It's 180 degrees opposite of what you're getting in the States. And the second game 2 was over. They were complaining about the officiating, which we're going to get to in a minute, and it's reflected in the viewer comments. I don't know why Oiler fans or any pundits would say the Oilers have dominated at any point. They've scored 1 goal in 2 games, but there's that. And as far as the officiating goes, I said that the Oilers did get hosed in game 2. You're up on a power play from Edmonton's perspective. and the puck gets flipped out of play by Evan Rodriguez. Should have been a penalty, should have been a 5-on-3. I don't care what all the refs are saying. You have to understand, Sarina gets this, many wouldn't. It's being debated 24/7 all week in Canada, whether that should have been a penalty or not. And the refs, like Tim Peel, retired refs, going, see, no, they called it right. I'm like, no, you're always going to say, defend the refs, because you have their back and you were one. So I thought, you and I, Sarina, barely talked about this after game 2. Do you not, I'm sure you think the Oilers got hosed by the refs, or no? We haven't talked about it.
Because I don't talk. When Edmonton loses, you don't even ask me questions because I don't want to talk about it. As you know, the officiating was atrocious. It's been terrible the whole playoffs. And just like last year, the Panthers have gotten the breaks. I don't care what anybody says. Over the course of all the playoffs, they have. There was a penalty called on Matthew Tkachuk the other night that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, he's done
or whatever.
Terrible. He's done so many other things that quantified him getting a penalty that he was not called for. In fact, what infuriated me the other night was the official literally stood there, chastised Tkachuk after the play. Official put his arm up and said, you did this. You were doing this. Don't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Then call a fucking penalty. Why are you telling him what he can't do? Call the penalty. But he didn't. So here we go. And then they call the chintzy shit. So there was banging and crashing and banging and crashing. And I said, the first penalty of this series is going to go to Edmonton. I will bet my life on it. And it did. And it was a chintzy tripping call on Ekholm. This series started out with the two teams hitting and whatever, and it was great. And the refs, for the most part in the first game, left it alone. And when I had Billy on here last week, I said, one thing I hope they do is let the teams play. And Bill said, I agree completely. Game 2, they did not let the teams play. Say what you want about the Draisaitl hit. Like, everybody relax. Draisaitl has never proven that he's a dirty player. In my opinion, he was not out to intentionally injure Barkov. That he's not that type of a player. People love to hate him because he's good, but that's ridiculous. Yes, it's a penalty. Okay, whatever. Everybody move on with it. But everybody wanted Draisaitl to be suspended. And it's like, really? There's been way dirtier stuff happen. And it's terrible. But having said all of that, the Oilers did not play well enough to win game 2. That's why they didn't win. You have to be strong even in 5-on-5. The Oilers' power play is incredible, and the Panthers' power play has been atrocious in this Stanley Cup final. However, they can turn that around anytime. If you don't win 5-on-5, it's pretty tough to win the Stanley Cup.
If you're listening to what the Panthers are saying in the media, and I'm talking to their people privately, none of them are getting ahead of themselves. They know this is a long ways from being over this series. They plan, I think, to do all the same things when they go up to Edmonton, because why wouldn't you? You're up 2-0 in the series. But, McDavid met with the media today and said this is going to take their best effort all season long to even just win Thursday, let alone come back and win the series. And that's all they're thinking about, is just winning Thursday. Look, you and I could go on forever, but I invited the viewer comments, so let's do that. Jesse writes in and says, I can't believe Rod thinks the Oilers are being treated unfairly by the officials. Well, and vis-a-vis, Sarina just said the Panthers get all the breaks. Historically, they have. Look at the Bruins series, and now this. And I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit, because on all of this, Sarina's a dyed-in-the-wool Oiler fan, has been since she was born. That's part of why she gets upset. That Oilers rink has been full every night since 1978. Win or lose. That's what they do. And in Florida, it hasn't been. We're hearing a lot of, I was a fan since 1993. That's all great. But there's also people that are saying you missed about 20 years in between that you didn't go. So that's all going. And I won't speak for Sarina on that. I'm sitting here as an unbiased observer. Do I want the Panthers to win? Yes. I'm on record as saying that. For our friends, Bill Lindsay, who's been great. All the Panthers organization has been great. Randy Moeller especially. All the people that have come down that are going to get rings. I'm cheering for them. So chill on that. But if they're going to get screwed in a game, I'm going to say it. And I felt the officiating was against them the other night. I'm with her on the Draisaitl thing. And by the way, lots of people have asked our opinion on that. We're not even done on that. But thank you to Podcast Junkies. We can now say we won the award. With the award winning NHL podcast from Florida. We're not the Panthers podcast. We're not the Lightning podcast. We're an NHL podcast from Florida, and we're going to talk NHL hockey from Florida. End of story.
So I appreciate what Jesse's saying, but the only people outside of Panthers fans are the only ones that think that they're the ones that are getting screwed on the officiating. You know, it's like but it's hard.
They're not.
It's hard for Panthers fans to see because they don't have any other realm of comparison. They're in this little bubble, so to speak, of like, they don't see the Lightning stuff or the Columbus stuff or the rain, whatever, right? In Canada, it's full on, balls to the wall, all hockey, all the time. Everybody knows who you pull for. That's all they're talking about up there in the news, let alone the sports. So it's a different mentality. They wouldn't see that these things, right? And, you know, it's different. But anyway, here we are.
Yeah, I guess the point is this. Sarina's going to call it the way she sees it, and I'm going to call it the way I see it. And I guess moving on to the next point is Danny and Ben, our boy Danny, by the way, Polino. They both said, what are your thoughts on the Draisaitl hit on Barkov? We can go a little further into that because that's what everybody's talking about. It knocked Barkov out of the game. Look, I've been following hockey too long, just slightly longer than Sarina. I always reference what it used to be. That was literally nothing. Now, still not that bad. He got a penalty. The NHL reviewed it after the fact, and there was no suspension. I see there's a sports guy at FAU. He's more of a football guy that I follow, and he's just going off on Twitter. He's like, why is nobody talking about Draisaitl's head? And I was listening to NHL radio, and they should be talking about this. I'm like, because it wasn't dirty, and he's not that type of player. For all the reasons Sarina just said, can we move on? Now, you also are going to see it different ways. Sarina's going to see it from her Edmonton way. The Panthers fans are going to see it from the Panther way, and I'd like to think I'm somewhere in the middle. Bill Lindsay goes on my show today, the Rod Peterson show, he goes, Draisaitl left his feet, elbowed him. You know what? Fine. That game was won in the alley. It was played in the alley. That's what the Panthers want. And I guess that's all our take, Danny and Ben. That is our take. None of us think it's dirty. Bill thinks it was, and that's fine. But going up to Edmonton for games 3 and 4, do you think it's going to be a street fight like game 2 was? I don't know. The Panthers would like that. I don't know if the Oilers want to play that way.
Well, I think that, like we said, every game takes on its own personality. The first game, any series, two teams are feeling each other out. 100%. The second game, the Panthers saw some things that they wanted to, I guess, maybe capitalize on. The goals that the Panthers got, this is the way these two teams play. Edmonton is go, 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 because they're much more skilled as a team. Then the Panthers sit back and wait. The Oilers make a mistake. The Panthers go down. Boom, pucks on the stick in the net. It's not a garbage goal. It wasn't a garbage goal. But the first game, I think the Panthers saw some mistakes that the Oilers made that they didn't capitalize on, and then they did in the second game. And, you know, as far as the Draisaitl thing, like, of course Billy's going to think it's dirty. But, like, at the end of the day, they were watching on ESPN, they're like, he lifted his elbow up. No, he didn't. He did not lift his elbow up. Did. Barkov was down, and I bet and Barkov is such a professional, clean, solid hockey player. Barkov wasn't pissing and moaning and crying about it in the media. Like, how come this guy? It's not the kind of guy he is. It's not the kind of coach Paul Maurice is. It's just not what we see. It's because Paul Maurice is a hockey guy. You know, I didn't see him go on there being like, there should be a suspension. It's like, people, you're going to see it. 15 different people are going to see it 15 different ways. We've seen the goaltender interference bullshit calls so far in the playoffs. Same thing. Everybody sees it a different way. Sometimes there's not a right or wrong, but at the end of the day, that's what the league looks at. Draisaitl is not a dirty player. There was not an intent to injure, no matter what anybody says. So everybody relax. Not everyone's out to get the Panthers, regardless of what you guys think about it.
Right. I have far less of a problem with that as I do the puck out of play call, because he was 6 inches inside the blue line and shot it out of play. Like, you blew it. So that's just one call that they blew. And then, so moving on, I'm just going to check off a couple that I don't need your input on unless you want to jump in. Steve and Maddie both say, should Florida want revenge on Draisaitl? And if so, who should do it? I don't know who said it because I've watched all the coverage. Now's not the time for that. Now's not the time for revenge. That's not what you do in a championship series. Like, get him next year. You got years to do this.
Did somebody rewind us back to 1976 in Philadelphia, where that's all it was get back at that guy? It's just not the way hockey's played anymore. 40 years ago,
I don't even think the Flyers would have done it in the Stanley Cup final. They would have waited till
Correct.
next year or got him in the parking lot.
Yeah, the fans would have got him in the parking lot.
Yeah, right. Mr. Eddie says, do you think Barkey will play game 3? Well, he practiced on Wednesday morning before the Panthers left to go to Edmonton. So if he's on the ice now, you got to understand there's a lot of factors that go into that. A 6.5-hour flight could, if he was concussed, which we don't know anything of what it was. And the way the elbow pads are now, I mean, let's not deny he did get it on the elbow, or on the jaw. But he seems fine. So all I will say is because he skated Wednesday, yeah, I think he will. D-Rev says, what's Sarina's concernometer? Scale of 0 to 10. What's your concernometer?
I love that word, and we need to adopt that. I'm going to adopt that moving forward. Thank you for sharing that word. It's more than it was before. Absolutely. Because like I said, I've been saying this, for a lot of the different series, and the Edmonton Oilers were going to decide if the Oilers won or lost this series. Because look how they played in game 1. That's what they're capable of versus how they played in game 2. The Panthers are not a high-flying team. They're more of a grinding team. So if a high-flying team isn't doing squat, they don't really have much to go on. And there was a little bit of struggles for the Oilers defensively, where in the first game, for whatever reason, they decided to put Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci back together. And they split them up against Dallas for a reason. I was like, what are they doing? And sure enough, there was a couple mistakes that the Oilers made, and that's why they split them up, and that's why Ceci was a healthy scratch. So yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned. It's 2-0 against a team that is not going to quit. If the Panthers had to play 8 playoff series, I don't think they would quit.
Now, I underestimated their hunger level. I've said on this show I didn't think they would get this far simply because history and stats show not many have done what the Panthers are doing. So I'm impressed by their hunger. From Bure 1096, he's like our biggest supporter, save for Brent Woltman and actually everybody that's watching right now. But Bure 1096 says, what's Edmonton's scoring issue? Can I go first?
Yep.
Game 1, Bob, and game 2, because I was joking on my TV show they should bump Bob almost to running him to get him off his game. Game 2, they couldn't even get near him. They set a house up in front of Bob. They couldn't get anywhere near him. They couldn't get shots from the lane. They couldn't breathe on Bob. And that was on the defense, both the forwards playing defensively and the towers on the back end. They just couldn't get near him. So that's what Bob was unconscious in game 1, and in game 2, the Panthers didn't give them a chance to even get near the net to score. That's my take.
Well, I don't know what goes on in Paul Maurice's head. He's obviously extremely intelligent, but I think that what everybody was talking about before the series was the forecheck of the Panthers. Oh, they're forecheck. And I'm like, they didn't even get an opportunity to forecheck in the first game because Edmonton just outskated them so bad. And like Chris Knobloch said after the game, he talked about the forecheck, and he's like, what happened was we were able to wear them down enough to the point that their lines were tired. So they didn't have the ability when they got the puck, they had to dump and chase more. And so that changed their style. And I think what flipped over into game 2 was Paul Maurice going, okay, let's maybe try a more defensive approach instead of our typical, go, because these guys are fast. So we need to figure out a way to stop it. There was guys like Hyman and obviously Draisaitl that had a lot of opportunities in front of the net in game 1 that didn't have those same opportunities, just from a different approach.
Yeah, I shouldn't say, because I was broadcasting baseball on Saturday night. I wasn't able to watch the game live and then only saw highlights. But on the domination thing, the Panthers out-hit them in game 1. It was like 63-35. That's 2-1 margin. Panthers out-hit Edmonton in game 1. So I wonder where the domination topic comes from, or the lack. I don't know where those hits came from. if they were unable to forecheck, but they came from somewhere. But moving on, you might want to cover your ears for a couple of these questions. Brent Waltman from Wellington says, if the Panthers win Game 3, will they sweep? I'm going to come out and say basically no. Sarina has already gone on record here and said there's no way the Oilers don't win at least one in the next two. So I will say no. You don't even want to think that, though. You don't even probably want to put that out into the universe.
No.
Yeah, so I'll move on. From the Alexander Barkov fan page, huge supporter of ours. Would you rather see a sweep or win it at home in Game 5 or 7?
Oh, don't start talking like that now. Do not start talking like that. The people that start talking like that get bit in the ass. You don't ever go, I really hope we can win it at home. Maybe if we lose this game, that shit bites you in the ass. The mayor of Tampa Bay tried to pull that shit one year. She's like, it would be really nice if we lost this game and won at home. And that bit her in the ass. Don't ever think like that. Ever. I don't care who you are. I don't care who's playing. I don't care if this is basketball, baseball, whatever. Don't ever wish to lose on the road because it would be nice to win at home. Don't ever. That's spoken by an inexperienced hockey fan that's never been bit in the ass by that.
Well, the Lightning did go on to win the Stanley Cup that year, so I get what you're saying.
The panic was there, though. Like, I just...
I know. You shouldn't say it. You shouldn't.
Never.
Especially not if you're the mayor. Alexander Barkov fan page can, though. So here's my answer to that. You want to nail it down. As a guy that's been with championship teams and I've got rings, and also we've lost championships. I've been with teams. Sarina's been in the barn for those games. You want to nail it down. So if you have the opportunity to sweep it up there, lock it down. And A, and B, you always want something to strive for. Because I was with the championship team. We did win on our own park in 2013, and we're like, what now? It doesn't get better than this. What is there to strive for? So if they sweep it up in Edmonton in Game 4, then next year it's coming back. Let's win back-to-back Stanley Cups and win it on home ice because we've never done that. That's how I would answer that Alexander Barkov fan page. And I'm sure Sarina doesn't like talking about it at all, but maybe you do. Because like you say, you don't want to put the jinx out like that. Zach says, what would the Stanley Cup mean to Cats fans? And I had a guy write me to answer this. I got to go in and, you can take a swing at it if you want. You do live in South Florida, but you're an Oiler fan, and do you even want to answer that, or should I just go to his answer?
If you find it right away, go ahead, but I can answer it after that.
No, I'd like to hear what you have to say on that.
Honestly, I don't know. Because, and I'm going to get scorched for this, but there's a lot of people here who think they're big fans, but they're not. And like you said, the people that are like, I've been following them for 30 years. And like, well, where were you when there was 2,000 people in the rink 10 years ago, right? It's like, these people have not lived and died by their team like I have.
Some have. Some have.
Sure, but like, what does it mean to Panthers fans? Individual fans, it probably means a lot to individual people. Like Bill Lindsay was in here talking about Junie and how much it would mean to him. And, Junie's been watching for 30 years because Junie has been watching for 30 years, which is
his dad.
Ironically, only a third of his life because he's 93 years old, but which is kind of funny to think about it. But it's a fact. Like if the Panthers don't win, look at it like this. People are going to go on with their lives and they're going to be bummed, but nobody's going to lose sleep about it. I don't know too many Oiler fans who have slept a good night's sleep in the last month. It's just different. So what does it mean to them? They probably think it means a lot more, but by comparison, it doesn't. Like there's Leafs fans who haven't slept in 50 years. It's a reality about how torturous it is. It's not torturous if they lose. So how can it be magnificent to that point if they win, is what I'm saying.
So Freddie Montero has written the answer to that. What would this mean to the fan base if they win a Stanley Cup? And Freddie supports everything we do. He watches this show. His quote, I would cry for sure. They got me into the game of hockey at 12 years old. A Cuban kid from Westchester that had never seen snow or ice finally got to see it at the age of 35. This would grow the game of hockey further south. And he goes on to say, never forget, LOL, you guys do a great job. Thank you for all you do as you two are growing the game of hockey down here. Wow. And Freddie watches every show.
That is a really nice thing of him to say. It's really nice.
Yeah. I just wrote him back. I didn't see his, he wrote me back. I'm like, thank you. I love it. Thank you, Freddie. For stories like that, because I don't hope you mind me saying, we're buying a house, we're staying, we're living, we're here. We plan to be in Florida for a long time and doing this show for a long time. And we love doing this show, and we love the people that tune in. I love that they hate what Sarina has to say. And now they're starting to poke shit at me too. But it tells me they're watching.
Right. Listen, hey, what people don't understand is that any publicity is publicity. Go ahead, hate on us, talk shit in the comments on this and that. Don't really care, because we're the ones doing the podcast. We're the ones that know the game. Go ahead and hate on us. It's like, you know, it's not whatever. But
well, hey, no, it's fine. Listen, this has worked out perfectly too, by the way, because we're going to take July, August off, probably, but maybe not, because you love your free agency talk and all the rest. But if we're ever short on topics, which hasn't happened yet in 38 episodes, but Freddie said this will grow the game south of here, south of Florida. Sarina rues the day, and we had this topic come up on our show today. Was it a great day for hockey when Wayne Gretzky was traded on August 9th, 1988? That's the day I stopped being an Oiler fan. Nope. And Sarina stayed with her team. It was two different ways to you rue that day. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in Florida going, we wouldn't have a team right now if Wayne hadn't been traded.
Sure.
No?
So, here we go.
Sorry. Blame Freddie. It's your fault, Freddie.
No. Freddie's not to blame, because Freddie probably has no idea that that's why there's hockey here.
I don't know.
Not to cut him. It's just that he doesn't give a shit about that. But at the end of the day, this is how I look at it. Again, this is just my opinion. But over the years, I've watched so much hockey, a lot more than the people here, and this is where I formed my opinion. When Wayne was sold to the Los Angeles Kings, I mean, you guys got to understand something. You have to understand something. There were adults in Canada that were, I mean, it was the worst thing that's ever happened in Canada, to the point where Peter Pocklington, the owner of the Oilers at the time, was kidnapped. There were death threats to this human being. This is how much the Edmonton Oilers mean to people. So when he went to LA, it was not only shocking because Wayne didn't want to go. It wasn't his idea to go. So everybody was like super upset about that. But what's happened is it expanded the team. It was a big, it became a media circus and a who's who of who's going to the hockey game. That's not what Canadians are all about. In Los Angeles, they were like, oh, Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are at the game. Well, who gives a shit? That's not how we look at it, but everybody had to be there, right? So what happened was over time, it grew and we expanded and whatever. So at the time when Wayne was traded, there were 21 teams in the league. There are 32 teams now. At the time, we didn't have conversations in the playoffs about whose team is deeper, because everybody was deep in the playoffs then. Now the talent is diluted. Guys who had no business, who would have never made the NHL 15, 20 years ago, are playing in the NHL. Does it make it a better league? Not in my opinion. So if you want to grow the game, people here are like, yay, there's cool things to do. Hockey's so cool. It's so cool to be a hockey fan. But the reality of it is, it's not good for the game of hockey to have talent diluted like that. Imagine if you went to the NFL and said, we're going to add another 4 teams in the next 4 years. People would freak out because they don't like the change. And it just dilutes the talent even more.
Yeah, so if anybody has some time in between these games, go watch the documentary, The 30 for 30 King's Ransom, where all of this is explained.
No.
I tried to watch it with Sarina, and she won't
Message me and I'll give you the fucking truth about that. Don't watch King's Ransom. It's all, I've never watched it, but I guarantee it's somebody else's take on what actually happened. It's crap.
You never watched it, so you can't talk about it. You don't know. And two,
I know exactly.
For the guys that have gotten NHL jobs and all the opportunities and all the billions that have been made, say this is your opinion, but I think it was a great day for hockey because I'm living in South Florida with an NHL team to cover. I'm pretty damn happy. So
the worst day of my life happens to be the happiest day of your life. Interesting how that works.
Holy shit, everybody. Welcome to a glimpse of our life. I said something, she heard another. I never said it in any way, shape, or form that it was the best day of my life.
You said it was the best day for hockey because here you can be here.
I have a life outside hockey. So it's not
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. So anyway, sorry everybody for taking that turn to Crazy Town at the end of this show.
Listen, for the record, you knew what you were getting into when you brought that up because we've had this conversation multiple times.
I don't even remember why I brought it up, to be honest. But next week, no matter what happens, I will say this, Jeff Rimmer, the original voice of the Florida Panthers, will be in. He's guaranteed it. The last two shows just in these playoffs, he hasn't been able to make it. He's back in Delray, but he hasn't been able to. He's like, I'll be there next week because I think this series is going to go 6 or 7. So we'll see. So good job, Benny boy. Enjoy the hockey. Thank you, Sarina. This has been fun, as I expected.
Yeah, swell. Haven't I had such a blast today? It's just been so great. I love the topic of conversation, everything that's happening around me. It's just, life is great.
It is, because we're breathing, and there's hockey to be played Thursday night. Thank you, everybody. I threw my pen already, so I'll see you next week with Sarina right here on the Cats and Bolts podcast.